has the leadership it needs to make our country more resilient to all hazards and threats, including pandemics, natural disasters, and terrorist incidents. Before I proceed to my questions, I just want to say, too, that I echo Senator Portman's sentiments about ensuring that schools may receive FEMA funds for PPE dating back to the beginning of the pandemic. This is truly a bipartisan issue, and I really look forward to working with FEMA on it. So now turning to my questions, Ms. Criswell, to put an end to this pandemic, the federal government must, in partnership with state governments, quickly and comprehensively distribute vaccines to all parts of the country. To that end, I'm pleased that FEMA has begun to standing up the first of 100 federally run vaccine sites across the country, which are supported by federal personnel and additional vaccine supply. However, based on its site selection thus far, it's unclear what analysis FEMA is conducting when making decisions about site locations. Ms. Criswell, if confirmed, will you commit to ensuring that FEMA equitably considers locations in smaller states like New Hampshire for these vaccination sites supported by federal personnel and additional vaccine supply?
Senator, thank you for that question. I think one of the things that we've seen with COVID-19 is that it has truly had a disproportionate impact on our underserved populations. And as we continue to roll out the vaccine, it's incredibly important that we continue to strive to reach those communities and help them recover from the impacts of COVID-19. I know in New York City, we have taken that very seriously, and as the city has rolled out vaccine, taken a look through the Social Vulnerability Index to identify the areas that can be used or the areas that need to have vaccine sooner rather than later. And I understand FEMA has also used the same index in some of their decision making. If confirmed, I'm committed to working with the leadership team at FEMA to better understand how they're making decisions. But I also think it's really important that the engagement with state and locals is part of that conversation because they know their communities best. They know where these vaccine sites should be or the resources that they may need to support their communities. And so I'm committed to working with you and your team in this committee to better understand the needs of communities and using FEMA resources to address those.
Well, I thank you for that. I appreciate it. One of the points I want to make, though, is sometimes the federal government just makes calls on where to send resources based on sheer population. And in a small state where towns, we have 234 towns for 1.3 million people, right? So there are going to be population centers that really need the help that don't meet certain thresholds if the analysis isn't careful. So I just would urge you to look at that. I would look forward to working with you on that. And the other point I would make is sometimes what happens is state partners are doing their best in some of these places, and then at times the federal government will come in and essentially supplant but not supplement what's happening. So I think it's going to be really important to work closely with your state and local partners too to make sure that you're not undermining the efforts that are already there, which I know you would not want to do, but just sometimes it happens.
No, I understand that completely, Senator. And again, if confirmed, I'm committed to making sure that all efforts should be coordinated with the state and local partners to understand their needs and their requirements and not pushing those requirements that may not meet their current situation.
Well, thank you for that. Now I want to turn to the topic of the Strategic National Stockpile. When it comes to ensuring that the Strategic National Stockpile is adequately stocked, maintained, and pre-positioned geographically, the Department of Health and Human Services is the lead agency. However, what we've learned in the COVID-19 pandemic is that there have been deficiencies in the availability and distribution of the assets in the stockpile. Given FEMA's experience in managing and distributing supplies during natural disasters, FEMA is a partner that could provide valuable advice to improve management of the Strategic National Stockpile before the next national crisis. So will you commit to coordinating with HHS to improve management of the Strategic National Stockpile?
Yes, Senator. The Strategic National Stockpile was a great resource for New York City during the beginning of this, and we understood the limitations of it as we were starting to see cases increase. I believe FEMA's always had a great partnership with HHS, and if confirmed, I'm committed to continuing to work with them to see how we can improve that resource to make sure that we have better preparedness in place and ready for the next pandemic.
Thank you. Last question. Early in the pandemic, lack of clarity in the Stafford Act delayed FEMA from providing federal assistance and funding to states and localities to combat the COVID-19 pandemic. Toward that end, there has been some discussion in the emergency management community to clarify the definition in federal statute of emergencies eligible for federal funding and assistance. During yesterday's Emerging Threats and Spending Oversight Subcommittee hearing, which focused on preparing for future crises, we heard testimony from General Votel and other members of the Business Executives for National Security Commission on the National Response Enterprise, and they were advocating for updating the Stafford Act. Ms. Criswell, do you support updating Stafford Act emergencies or disasters to include pandemics or major cyber attacks?
Senator, FEMA is an all-hazards agency, and they continue to respond to hazards, whether it's a pandemic or a natural hazard or man-made events. I would welcome the opportunity, if confirmed, to working with Congress to see what authorities could help us do our job better so we can, again, make a more prepared and resilient nation and help people.
Thank you for that. I would look forward to that too. It's both the type of disaster and the extent of disasters that we have to be prepared for, I think, and realize that some of the situations on the ground are changing. So I look forward to working with you very much. Now I can turn to Senator Ossof, who is ready to take his round of questions next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate that. And thank you, Ms. Criswell. I enjoyed the conversation that we had discussing some of the most urgent concerns in Georgia when it comes to emergency management. And I just, in the interest of everybody's time, have one question for you, which is, Ms. Criswell, will you commit that in your first year in this position, should you be confirmed, that you will join me in Georgia to meet with the farmers who were impacted by Hurricane Michael and to engage in planning with local leaders and local officials to ensure that we have the plans in place to get swifter aid to Georgia's agricultural sector if and when another devastating tropical storm or hurricane strikes our state? Thank you.
Senator, thank you. I appreciated the conversation that we did have about the variety of challenges that Georgia faces, and if confirmed, I would welcome the opportunity to come meet with you and your staff and better understand the challenges that you're facing across the variety of communities that you serve.
Well, thank you, Ms. Criswell. I look forward to welcoming you to Georgia, and Madam Chair, I yield back. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Senator Ossof. So we have a couple of other members of the committee who are trying to make it back from other committee hearings and votes because they would like to touch base with you. So while we see if those logistics work, why don't I ask you this? You have been through over the last year of this pandemic this critical frontline role in New York City. You have been talking with a number of senators as you prepare for this nomination hearing and for taking on the work if you're confirmed. Are there things we haven't touched on yet that you would like to bring up to the committee or just update us on?
Senator, I appreciate that opportunity. New York City was really at the epicenter of the COVID-19 response in the very beginning. And I think it's important to understand that, as we were going through that response in March and April, before it started to improve in May, is that, we were responding to the situation when we didn't know how bad was going to get.
Right.
And making decisions literally at times of, each day, do I have enough staff? Do I have enough people? Do I have enough resources to get through the next 72 hours? And so, as we've discussed with the Strategic National Stockpile and other preparedness efforts, I think that we have such a great opportunity right now to learn so many lessons of the beginning days of this pandemic and how we can invest in preparedness going forward. I think, the nation did a great job of investing in preparedness for terrorist attacks after 9/11, and I think we have another really great opportunity to invest in preparedness against a future pandemic.
Yeah. As the pandemic evolved in New York City, and as you had to make decisions on the ground in real time, thinking back to that experience now, are there ways of using technology now that you would like FEMA to work on that would allow you to be more nimble in the field?
I think, Senator, technology is an incredibly important tool for us to use. And I think what I would say, what we've learned from the pandemic and the ability to do more of the work remotely, I think that there's also a really great opportunity right now to continue some of those lessons learned on how we can use technology to be more efficient in our support to state and local communities. And if confirmed, I really want to look at, some of the benefits that happen and how we can institutionalize those going forward. So one, we have more efficient deployment of resources, and we're serving communities better.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it very much. I now see that Senator Lankford has joined us, and I will turn to Senator Lankford for his round of questions.
Thank you. It's good to get a chance to visit with you again. Thank you. Thanks for the time we could already spend before to be able to talk through several of these issues, and I appreciate making yourself available to be able to go through those. Let me talk through a couple of things we had talked about before and some additional things to be able